Our next speaker, we're turning our attention now to Florida, and in particular down to the Miami area. We have two speakers to speak about that, and we're going to start with Mayor Oliver Gilbert from Miami Gardens.
Thank you all for inviting me to the DOT up here. It's actually, I want to move to Connecticut now. Not because the traffic is great, but because I've never been called an expert so many times. I'm a mayor. I'm a mayor. They call me everything but an expert. So I appreciate you all having me. You have wonderful people here with a lot of good information about transportation. And I serve as the mayor of the third largest city in the county. I think we're like the 15th largest city in the state. We're in a pretty important area. We have 95 right there and the Turnpike and 826. But I also serve as the vice chair of the MPO. And transportation, in a lot of ways, it's important because it is actually our greatest interaction. It's where most of us will actually form opinions about each other. And when you look at it from a public servant or an elected official's perspective, we're looking at things like that. One of the things that I noted when one of the previous speakers was speaking, she said that they went out 6 years before and opinion had changed 6 years later. And let me just suggest something to you all from how you get your residents and your voters to buy into it. The situation won't get better. Time is actually on your side in this instance. I'm not going to say that in South Florida people are terribly excited about the toll lanes. I'm not going to say they're excited about that stuff, but they use them. They use them, and it's becoming more popular because the situation won't get better without us doing something. So independent of the environmental effects, people care about how it affects them. So if I have to leave my house 20 minutes earlier because this year versus 3 years ago to get to work, that matters to me. If I can't get from my job to my son's daycare and I'm going to end up paying the absurd $20 a minute if you're late, which is really just, there ought to be federal regulations about that. That matters. It's really just that simple. So when you're talking to your public about transportation solutions, whether it be express lanes, whether it be open road tolling, no matter what it is, the picture you're painting is well, first of all, how bad it is right now. But independent of that, how it's going to look a couple of years down the road and a couple of years down the road. And you don't just paint that picture to people and voters and residents, but you paint it to business people. Because there's a very real effect on commerce. Our ability to move stuff from point A to point B quickly. There's a very real effect on commerce. It's a very real effect on quality of life. And so when I'm talking to my residents about the things we do with regard to the MPO, when I'm talking about transportation solutions, I'm not talking to them about, what lane is going to go where. I'm talking to them about, can they get to work on time? Can they pick up their kid on time? Can they get from Miami Gardens to the beach without sitting in traffic for long periods of time? Can they get to the heat, the arena down there? Yeah, it's a very practical, very realistic conversation. So I'm not an expert on transportation, but I don't think that's why I'm actually here. I think I'm going to communicate it to them. Because a lot of times when you're an academic, and these are brilliant people here, listening to them, well, look, we do have an expert from South Florida. She's coming up next. So we got brilliant people too. But we got our own brilliant people. But it's a lot of times we get caught up as in communicating how we learn it and how we write it. And it's about, fuel efficiencies, and it's about, cutting back on your trip time, and it's about whether you can widen the lane, and whether it's open tolling. And we forget that you're actually talking to people, and they don't think in those terms. You're speaking in a way that they are not listening. So the question is, can you communicate everything you said here in a really, really simple, practical way to the people who are going to matter, the people who are going to have to pay for it? Whether it be via sales tax, whether it be via toll, they're going to have to pay for it. So can you tell them how it affects them? If you can tell them how it affects them, they'll support it. If you can't, they won't. Until you come back 6 years later. Because what you can't tell them, time can show them. And time will show them. That's all I have. Thank you all for inviting me.